walking down the road with the pistol in your waist. Johnny, you're too bad.
You're in the gray zone. Listener-supported crime podcasting out of a dank efficiency apartment in the Gaylord Hotel in Koreatown, USA. I'm Mark Ebner. I'm an award-winning journalist and New York Times best-selling author, and I'm a private investigator. Dr. David Robinson is with me, making me sound pretty.
Doing what I can.
I thank you for that. Did you get paid today?
I believe so, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Of course, that's how it works. Every dollar sent in by fans of the show goes back into the show, and I refuse to run commercials on this podcast, so shake me loose some shekels, would you? PayPal, markebner59@gmail.com. It's as simple as that. Venmo the same, or become a show subscriber on Patreon. Otherwise, just tell a friend about what I have cooking up here in the gray zone. Thanks. Couple of things. A, I am never, ever checking in with my actual location on Facebook again. B, I'm glad we're on a time delay here because since I just gave up my location at the top of the show, I mean... oh God, you know, I can't leave. That is so amateur to leave footprints on social media, especially when people want you dead. I mean, imagine my personal horror when I was confronted downtown last week by an animal I literally put in jail about a decade ago. Well, it happened last week. I got a last-minute invite to join some old Quaker school pals from Providence, Rhode Island, Daryl Wood, Bobby Ida, and our host, Farhad Zoltash. And we met for an impromptu mini reunion at a Persian restaurant in downtown L.A. on Hill Street, if you know the area well. Think kebabs. Good stuff, eggplant, that sort of stuff. Yeah, well, we feasted. We sat there, we caught up on good times, and then it was hugs and kisses all around, and we're out the door. They headed one way to their vehicle on Hill, and I started hoofing it to a parking lot on the other direction when, from a doorway right next to the restaurant, I hear a husky male voice as I pass. There you are. The fuck? I turn to face the doorway, and out lumbers a big, bearded, burly, menacing man I instantly came to recognize as Jonathan Ajar, a.k.a. Johnny Dangerous, the guy who was the fence for all that crap those kids from Calabasas, known as the Bling, stole from the Hollywood homes of the likes of Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, and Orlando Bloom. Remember the Bling Ring, David?
I do. I don't want to get ahead of you. Didn't they make a feature film about them with Emma Watson?
They did, and it was horrible. But I don't want to slag on fellow quote-unquote creatives right now, so let me give you a little backstory here. The Bling Ring had aroused the schadenfreude of gossip mongers worldwide, you know, and it was a big story. I mean, these were kids, high school kids in Calabasas, and who were using GPSs and Google Maps to focus in on celebrity homes, and they were using their cell phones to kind of stay in touch and time when the celebrity would be out of the home, and then they'd go into the homes and rob them blind.
And the celebrities were usually posting where they were on Facebook, which was far away from home.
Exactly. So, you know, this, if we were to subtitle this podcast, it might be The Perils of Social Media.
Of which there are many.
Yes. You know, and so when I jumped on the story, those wacky kids had been rounded up by law enforcement, and there was only one of the bunch on the lam, and that was their fence. Dangerous. So that's where I came in. I'm pretty good at finding people, and Maxim magazine bought my pitch with every confidence in my investigative ability. There were other journalists, Nancy Jo Sales at Vanity Fair. Actually, it was her story that became the movie, and jackpot, Nancy Jo got about $100,000 for that story.
Not a bad payday for a reporter.
Not at all. And like I said, so journalists and TMZ and all the gossip mongers were all over the Bling Ring beat. My particular angle focused on the dark corners where they surely weren't looking. Dr. David, if you were looking for a fugitive with only a name and approximate age, how would you go about finding him?
Well, as speaking as someone who is not a professional in this field, I would start with Google and then go to Facebook, because you figure Facebook, pretty much everybody has a presence there. So you're going to be able to not only find the subject who you're looking for, but you'll generally see pictures of the folks they hang out with and everything. So seems like a good starting point.
Trade secret. Okay, that's all well and good. I admire your tactics using social media.
I'm a beginner.
Yeah. But here's a trade secret. Wait for it. What do you do when you want to find a fugitive? His mother. Fugitives, I swear to God, they always seem to keep in touch with their moms, when they're on the run. So I found his mom, Elizabeth Ajar. She was working as a supermarket checkout clerk in Seattle, Washington. So I get her on the phone. Mrs. Ajar, Mark Ebner here from Maxim magazine, and I'm looking for your son. No harm, no foul, ma'am. I just simply want to hear his story. Pro tip, charm the mom. Well, Mrs. Ajar promised me that she'd reach out to her boy for me. We hung up the phone, and within 10 minutes, I get a call. Dangerous himself. Hey, man, I've read your stuff. Well, of course he had read my stuff because Maxim magazine was the single most article throughout the United States penal system. Why? Because they showed just enough skin without violating the no nipple standard for incarcerated convicts desperate for spank material. See what I'm saying? Maxim got by the censors in prison. And apparently, these poor, misunderstood gentlemen criminals actually read my work. I had found a fan in Johnny Dangerous. Maxim magazine. My foot was in the door. He says to me, "Hey, did you know Eddie Little?" Well, of course I knew Eddie Little. Drug addict, armed robber, burglar, con man, convict, and the outlaw author of Another Day in Paradise. So, of course, I knew Eddie Little. You ever see the movie Another Day in Paradise?
I never saw it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, it stars a once fine actor turned Trump fanatic Twitter troll, James Woods. So Eddie, after years in prison, got his payday in Another Day in Paradise. So I knew Eddie. I really did. As a matter of fact, I played poker with Eddie right before his being back on drugs. He had become reduced to a hand-to-mouth existence. He was just trying to scrape a living out of playing 612 Hold'em at Hollywood Park. In 2003, Eddie Little died of a heart attack, alone, broke, in a cheap Los Angeles motel. Eddie Little was 48 years old. Rest in peace. I went to his funeral at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery where they put him in the ground, not far from where Didi Ramon took his dirt nap in 2002, And Johnny Ramone was also interred there in 2015. So, on the phone with Johnny Dangerous, I told him that I wanted to meet with him. I wanted to hear his story. I baited the hook, and he told me that he'd call me back. So, meantime, I bolted for Hollywood Forever, where I leaned a pack of Eddie Little's smoke of choice, Marlboros, on his headstone. And I snapped a photo of it. I texted the photo to Johnny Dangerous, and Johnny rang me back in 30 seconds. I'm in Vegas, he said. I'm on my way, I said. I hopped into a rental car and barreled through the desert, setting up camp in my out-of-the-way hotel of choice, the Suncoast. The next morning, I walked out into the sun-scorched hotel parking lot to see a big dude with tattoos. In fact, across his chest, it read, "Another Day in Paradise." So he really was an Eddie Little fan. I saw him in the parking lot. He kind of looked like how I'd imagine the baby Huey of the Demimon might look. You know, baby Huey on steroids or something like that. We shook hands and went up to my hotel suite where I got him on video, essentially to protect myself should I face any flack for harboring a fugitive or some such nonsense. Pro tip, always cover your ass when consorting with fugitives and criminals.
What's your name?
Jonathan Adrar, a.k.a. Johnny Dangerous.
Johnny Dangerous.
Yeah,
There's a warrant out for your arrest.
correct.
And what are the charges?
Being charged with 9 felony accounts, including firearms, narcotics, and possession of stolen property.
Possession of stolen property?
Correct.
So media reports are calling you armed and dangerous. How would you respond to that?
Not right now, that's for sure.
Okay. Are you Billy the Kid?
I don't think so.
Are you Jesse James Hollywood?
Definitely not.
So what are you going to do?
I'm turning myself in on Wednesday, November 4th.
And who's going in with you?
Mark Ebner and my lawyer will be present with me.
Anything else you want to say? That's it?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Well, okay. So now my ass is covered, sort of. We have a steak dinner, and I interview this knucklehead about his life of crime and doing time, and the tale he told was of coming up white trash, gang affiliation, drugs, and how he hooked up with the bling ring. He seemed cavalier about the fact that bling ringer Nick Prugo had ratted him out, and at the same time, he seemed resigned to his fate. He knew the coppers were on his tail. In fact, there was a Hollywood precinct robbery homicide detective. His name was Brett Goodkin. This guy was already grandstanding about the work he'd accomplished rounding up the others. Like, that was major detective work. I mean, there was home security tape evidence showing these kids dancing around Paris Hilton's house trying on her clothes and jewelry, for Christ's sake. It wasn't actually, the case of this guy's career. And Goodkin was certainly no Elliot Ness, but he did manage to get a consulting gig on the Bling Ring movie and a cameo, which he was later disciplined for, if not terminated by the LAPD for doing that without their knowledge. I think he got paid like $12,000 to be a consultant, and they put him in the movie. Well, I'm not sure what happened to Detective Goodkin, but I do remember him looking like a less friendly version of Mr. Clean. So I spent the overnight in Vegas interviewing Johnny Dangerous, and we made plans to head back to L.A. in the morning. He met me in the parking lot, idling that BMW of dubious provenance. I positioned my rental car behind him. I jumped out of the car and I asked him if he had any firearms or any kind of contraband in the car, and he gestured to the trunk, where he had stashed reality show actress Adriana